Well, Donald Trump just doubled the tariffs on steel and aluminum up to 50% now. Apparently, that's going to all but choke off those industries. Also, it looks like the Bank of Canada is probably going to put a hold on reducing interest rates. And most of the banks are predicting that we will slide into a recession in the next 2 quarters in Canada and then possibly bounce back out at the end of the year. Also, Danielle Smith met with the Premier's meeting with the Prime Minister, and she was quite encouraged, although she did preface that by saying, we'll see what the next couple of months bring, and I guess we will. Hi, it's Rob Johnstone, Remax Complete here in Calgary. Let's jump right into the stats from the Calgary Real Estate Board and see what they have to say. I did a little bit of a dive into the Toronto and Vancouver statistics as well. And I've got to tell you that stats that we get from the Calgary Real Estate Board are superior to even those big, huge markets. Anne-Marie Laurier, our economist, does just a super job for sure. Let's see what we've got here. If you would like to have these stats, just scoot us a note. There'll be a form that pops up, or hit the link, and we'd be happy to send those off to you. So here, I'm not going to read every word of this. If you want to do a deeper dive, as I said, just request it and we'll definitely get you hooked up with that. So as you can see here, just a cursory look, the total residential price has dropped about 2.5%. So this is total residential, everything that people might live in. Detached single family homes is up about 1% from last year. Now these are using the benchmark prices, not the average price. Average price is a little bit higher than this, sitting around 826, I believe. Semi-detached is about 3% up at 697, and you can see the other numbers there. What is significant is this months of supply. That is the absorption rate or the rate of turnover, and at 2.6, it's getting into kind of a buyer's market territory. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. Look at the Calgary district stats that are reflected by the total residential real estate in the city. And as you can see here, I've highlighted some of these absorption rates. As I said, they're quite important. And so this initially, the first one here is the single family detached. And as you can see, it breaks that down into the different sections of the city that the Calgary Real Estate Board reports on. So here, absorption rate, Calgary Northeast, 3.91, so pushing up to about 4 months of inventory, definitely looking like a buyer's market in the northeast of Calgary with single family detached. Northwest at 1.64, still a seller's market, and the south as well. Now, I just want to emphasize here, I just did numbers for some people that are thinking about moving in Nolan Heights, and their absorption rate was sitting at around 3%, three months of inventory, sorry. Then conversely, I did numbers for a gentleman's house for sale in the West Hills, and he is under 2, about 1.7 months absorption rate. So just saying that to emphasize that in this market, you really need to have the macro and then the micro statistics for your specific neighborhood and property type so that you can determine where you want to be as far as list price goes for sure. Just comparing this year to last, now we're still in total residential here, and I wanted to show you this graph here, which is the Calgary total months of inventory, again that absorption rate. And as you can see, 2020, when we were in the middle of COVID, inventory just spiked up January, February, March, April, and that was in the midst of the total shutdowns. But what I want to point out here is 2021, the first few months, you can see the absorption rates dropped off. 2022, that says we're going into the spring market. It's the strongest part of the year. So it only makes sense that things will drop off because the buyers come out and there's lots of activity. And it tends to sometimes lag. If we get a really cold January, February, then that'll keep people indoors. And then again, 2024, the same thing. And then look at 2025. We're just not seeing that drop in the absorption rate. So we're we're pushing up to more of a normal market. It's funny because realtors that have just been licensed since COVID, they've never experienced anything like this before. And I'm on a couple of Facebook groups, and young realtors are going, oh, it's things are really swung to the buyer's market. You can negotiate like crazy. And, they just never seen this before. So they're overreacting to it. Really, we're just approaching more of a normal market cycle at this point. So let's move on here and see what else I've got for you. Real estate board detached. Now these are detached up here. You can see May's numbers. So comparing this year to last with the single family detached, sales are down just marginally. Look at that, just about 105 sales, 108 sales less this year. But inventory's gone from 1,600 up to about 3,000. So that's almost doubled, probably about a 90% increase in the number of homes that are for sale, single family detached right now. But I want to point something else out too. Remember I mentioned to you that those numbers at the start that were showing the values of the different market segments were benchmark pricing. So benchmark price is where they try to determining what the average property is like in that given market area, and then pricing that property every month. And that way it eliminates the high and the lows of the average price, which can affect that, of course. So just with that in mind, I wanted to chat with you about this. So these are Calgary total sales of that single family detached market. And just down here, this is 2025, you can see over 2 million is 104 sales year to date, whereas last year was only 70. 1.5 to 2 million, 149. Last year was 141. And then 1.3 to 5 is 126. So a little bit lower there. And then a little bit lower as well in the million to 1.3. So looking at these numbers, I would say that possibly our average price is skewed a little bit to the high because of those increased number of sales in that 1.5 to plus $2 million range. So let's move on again. Let's see what we've got here for us. Oh, the apartment market, that's struggling a bit. Not quite as badly as other parts of the country, but inventory 1,113 last year. We're up to 2,000, so we're almost double. So about 94%, I would guess, is about where we're at. Sales are about half. So the condo apartment market is struggling a bit. And again, depending on specific buildings, communities, and market segments. So, and then again, with the condo apartment market, you can see that same trend with the absorption rate, that rate of turnover and inventory here, that we're just not seeing that drop off in the months of supply as we have. It's almost identical type of graph as I showed you with the single family detached. Then semi-attached, these we're looking at, it kind of tells the same story. Sales are down. Well, single family detached here, it's actually looking quite stable. Sales are virtually exactly the same. May 2004 compared to 2005, only a difference of 3. Inventory is about doubled though, and our average price is actually dropped off a little bit. It's down about $20,000. And the benchmark is the same, down about that same $20,000 as you can see there. So that's it for the Calgary Real Estate Board stats. As I said, if you want the full package, just send us a note. We're happy to send that off. And at the back end here, you can see all the different submarkets within the city that the Real Estate Board has cordoned off. And then as well, all the definitions that we chat about here just right at the end. So from here, I want to talk a little bit just about the Calgary market and how we're comparing to Vancouver and Toronto. I've been chatting with 2 different families that are going to be moving out to Alberta. We're still getting actually a lot of people moving from Vancouver and from Toronto to our market because we still are a lot less expensive. So just here, just that house prices are expected to drop by 6% in Ontario, 4% in BC, and warned that the condo market in Ontario could see a 15 to 20% drop. Apparently that condo market in Toronto is just a bit of a bloodbath right now. Of course, people buy these units on speculation as they're being built, and then they anticipate that they're going to have some upside on closing, and that just has not happened. In fact, it's gone the other way. Some of these condos are down as much as 25% at closing, and the banks are not advancing the funds for mortgages, and people have to either cough up the money or lose it, and it goes back to the developer. And some of those developers are looking like they're going to become insolvent. So yeah, bad situation there. But I have these two families that are coming. The one has their house sold. It's gone to the bank, and the bank said, do not buy another house in Calgary until you have your money in your pocket. And I guess they're quite concerned because of the number of closings that are going off the rails just at possession. The other folks that I'm talking to, they were considering keeping their house and renting it out there and then buying in Calgary, until I chatted with them about the landlord and tenant legislation in Ontario and how very difficult it is to get a tenant out and the rights that those tenants have. I have an investor that I've dealt with for 3 years now, and he's divesting from Ontario and buying in Alberta just specifically for that reason. One tenant, he had to write a check for $60,000 to get him out of his condo apartment. He was not happy. Well, it appears that we're in for a little bit of a slowdown. I would expect that it's not going to be a dramatic recession type slowdown. Now, keep in mind that I've been in the business for quite a long time, and I've seen ups and downs, and I don't see real estate prices falling off the cliff here in the next year or so. And I do anticipate that we're going to see more net migration. Of course, there's wild cards in the mix here as far as Alberta's separation and how that pans out. Tariffs are still an issue, although more so for Eastern Canada than for Western Canada for sure. We'll see how this all pans out. Anyways, that's it for now. Hit the link if you want the full report sent out to you. Hope you're having a great day, and I look forward to next month. Bye for now.